Greetings. Greetings. I'm gonna fix my hair a little bit. Seems to be the thing. I don't like it when there's not enough light. So I'm gonna make it give some light and then be right back. All right. All right. Hi and welcome. Okay, so today is another day of Female Reverence Sundays where we will go into some known, if you watch this channel on a regular, some of these goddesses and females of the Americas you will recognize, and some you may not. And then we're going to go into a little bit of the history around some of these cultures and stories. Okay. So thanks for being here. And as usual, bring in a little sound. Just really getting used to new space and new ways, so to speak. There we go. There's a little bit better lighting. Okay. So a little bit of sound. Okay. So what I did over the last few days was so on Instagram, I do a little side bit on Instagram, and there are so many ladies there that are schooling me on so many unknown medicine women, unknown actual just pioneers in creation and industry and so many things. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to step it up a little bit. So I wanted to learn more about known and unknown um, goddesses, but actual, just not just, but women, females of the Americas. And many of them, as I said, I have done specific videos on. Some of them are for members, but let's get started. So, and there are origins here, not just to the Great Mother and to female reverence, but to the serpent goddess, to the earth mother, to earth in general, and around children and adoption, which I personally am not just interested in, but have a personal stake in it. I don't know which is okay. Okay, so we have the Andean goddesses or Andean females, and one of them is Mama Ocllo, Ocllo. She's an Incan origin mother, teacher of creation, agriculture, and feminine wisdom. And then we have Mama Kila or Mama Kia, Killa, moon goddess, timekeeper, and tides. So timekeeper and keeper of the tides, fertility, and again, I've talked about her before. Then we have Mama Quoto, like a mountain, and lake mother, connected to the Pleiades and star mothers. Okay, so that's mostly where I have included those great mothers, is in my star research, because I'm at the point now from my research and studies, I'm under the impression, or I should say, of the impression that many of our stories, specifically myths, are from the stars or from the great mother's watchings, calculations, and noticings of the stars, and then the stories and information passed along with that. We have Pachamama, which I've also mentioned before and in earlier videos. Earth Mother, pre-Incan, and her name carries a deep feminine star origin. And we link also the mountains because of the Kwa part of a lot of these deities, okay, and females. Then we have, this is Kichwa, Amazon, Guayusa, dream woman, dream prophetess who drinks Guayusa at dawn to receive visions and guide the people. Then we have Maria Sabina. She is Mazatec, mushroom medicine priestess known now but often misunderstood, and held a cosmic prayer language. So I find this interesting because now in today's realm or today's world, we have a lot of people remembering what is called light language, or I want to say great mother's language or intuitive language. And it would sound something like this. Ish ishwan liu ashwali ele nyala akiwai swoosh ish yamanya uwala yatia. Okay. And the way that that feels, the interpretation that comes from that is we're talking about feminine great mothers and that energy and the original language, which was intuitive and empathic, so to speak. Okay. So is that the cosmic prayer language that is maybe just misunderstood? And she called herself La Mujer Estrella, meaning the star woman. All right. Now we move into Mesoamerica, where we have Ixchel, often mispronounced as Ixchel, but it's Ixchel, and that's Mayan. And I've done a video around her as well. Moon, serpent medicine, childbirth, weaving fate, rainbow light, but also a warrior shapeshifter originally. And I recently learned that weaving, okay, so textiles, and I learned this from a great mother on Instagram, and I think hers is Authentic Woman. Let me check real quick because I want to give her accolades. Let's see. She was explaining that. What was I just talking about? Okay. Right, Michelle. Oh, I forgot. I forgot what I was talking about. Ixchel, serpent medicine, childbirth. Oh, weaving. Okay. She was explaining that textiles and sewing was considered witchcraft. And that is actually where we get. So making of something, sewing or weaving, which was highly respected and revered, speaking of reverence, yet because of the more modern day and the whole thing around like putting females in a different position, a position of non-authority, that if you were a weaver or did any kind of weaving, you were considered a witch and could be, harmed because of that. And actually, this is where we get the word textile and texting or writing also comes from the idea of weaving, which I didn't know. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. But let me find her real quickly while I'm, mentioning. So let me see. Give me just a moment. I'm pretty sure I learned this from. And now I can find her. Let's see. Yeah, the authentic. Let me see.
To talk about witches, let's talk about.
Okay. The authentic. Oh my gosh, I can't read it. Let's just go to her page. The Authentic Glow, all one word, on Instagram. If you want, she's posting daily. She pretty much posts daily about different great mothers, and that was one of the stories. Okay, now we move on from Ishel to Chachi Q, who I've also done a video. Chachi Chachi Q, which is Mexica and Nahau, Nahaa. She's the jade skirted water goddess. Connection to birth, rivers, floods, and female warriors. And you can see this is also being kind of linked to Yamanya. Okay. Then we have Chiut Tetitio. Tetitio. Souls of women who died in childbirth. I have also done a video around that. Elevated to warrior spirits equal to male eagle warriors. And that comes a little bit later as far as the change around. I feel like I'm leaning one way. There we go. The change around even how animals are seen, but it's still pretty cool. Okay. Then we have Tanatsian Kotlikyu, grandmother serpent earth. Later fragmented into a virgin of Guadalupe, demonized and divided. But Kotlikyu is considered the mother of all. She came from the earth to create. She is the earth and came from the earth to create all. And there is a very similar story of hers that links, or I think sounds similar to Nama or Namu and Tiamat. Okay. Great mothers of what is called the chaotic waters. So, though I think that chaos has been turned into something a little unsavory, chaos is the idea of creation, because laughing really hard is a form of chaos. Dancing is a form of chaos. A storm is a form of chaos. That doesn't mean it's bad. Okay. All right. Then we move into Turtle Island, North America. All right. So we have Sky Woman. Uh, I might have done a video around her as well. I'm gonna try her name. Haun Den Osauni. Haun Den Osauni. Sky Woman. Falls from the sky, births the world, star mother, creator. So even as Sky Woman is considered a star, literally a star who came to this earth, to this planet, and she is the Sky Mother, births worlds, and ultimate creator. Then we have the Corn Mother, Silu, and this is Cherokee, goddess of nourishment, death, rebirth, and cycles. Then we have White Buffalo Calf Woman, which is Lakota, bringer of ceremony, prophecy, sacred pipe, and feminine law. And in getting into some of these specific indigenous groups, we'll see that the great mothers had the ultimate say and the ultimate kind of leadership in what happened around said warriors or said laws. Okay. Then we have the true lone woman of San Nicolas Island, Nicolino, which is Shumash. Okay. She is real. All these females are real. Like, we've been told that they are mythical, but they are real in each culture and actually in real life. And this is one of them. Okay. She was a mystic woman who lived alone for decades. And she used oral tradition calls, uh, and she used oral tradition, and her spirit gifted ways was through oral tradition, being a prophetess and considerably a priestess, okay, and considered possibly the last priestess as well. We can't, I don't really like to say the last because we still exist, but as far as what others called a priestess, recognized as a priestess, okay. Then we have Kateri Tekwithia, who is Mohawk and Algonquin. Um, she is synchronized or kind of mixed together with Christian as a Christian indigenous saint. I actually think I did a video around her as well because she became canonized as far as Catholicism goes. But in local oral tradition, she held healing gifts. She was a great healer. And then we have Lozen, which is a part of the Apache group. And there's different clans of the Apache. And she was a medicine woman, a seer, meaning a prophetess. She could see things, a warrior, and used spirit vision in battle is what we're told. And we still see that. We see spirit vision happening on a continuous level, especially in today's realm, as far as I'm concerned. All right. Then we move into the Caribbean, and it says Afro Indigenous, but also Afro links to Africa, and let's just say highly melanated Indigenous, all right, because we don't want to mix truths or mix education in the way that we've been somewhat mistaught, okay? So Canio, Anna Anna Canoa is Taino or Arawak, Dominican Republic and Haiti area. She is a golden flower poet queen. I love that. A golden flower poet queen. I love that. Diplomat, prophetess, and she was eventually unalived by the Spanish. All right, and then we have Atabe. I have done a video around Atabe, which is Taino Arawak. Water mother, birth mother, moon mother, mother of tides, and pre-colonial mother creator. And I think links back to one of the other Mesoamerican great mothers, but I don't want to say that for sure. But we do have some, not some, but we have substantial evidence of uh, South American indigenous and North American indigenous not only being one and the same, as in they moved from South America to North America or traveled back and forth from. We know that for certain. Then we have Yamanya or Yamoja, which comes from the Yoruban traditions, but also from the melanated indigenous American peoples. And she arrived through the Middle Passage and rooted in the Americas as the ocean mother, midwife, keeper of the womb, and water magic. Her American expression merged with indigenous water mothers. I love that. Okay, the Amazonian serpent priestesses. Oral tradition speaks of Yekenua, Yekuana, anaconda woman. So a great serpent woman. Then we have Shipibo and Kanibo, which I also have videos around. Ayahuasca song woman. And then we have Teparapi, dream woman, dream water woman. So not only are they linked to water, but they're linked to the serpent and The great serpent is always wonderful as far as the link to the earlier serpent goddesses like Tiamat, and then we have the Ouroboros, and we have other serpent links, but the snake and the serpent always goes back to the Great Mother and to the goddess. All right. And then these women carried serpent cosmic medicine, healing songs, and star maps in textiles. So in some of the videos that are more for members, I go into how the Milky Way has and the Milky Way has been called a serpent, or the serpent river, or the serpent that returns. And there are depictions of the serpent within the Milky Way. So again, this is where I kind of come back to how many of the stories come from the stars and are directly linked to the stars. Okay. Then also, they are also linked to sigils and hidden sigils. All of these great mothers are linked to sigils and hidden sigils. And then, so from here, I also went into, well, just a little recap. So there are others that I haven't gotten into, but we've talked about it on these videos and in some of my other videos. Midwives. Okay. They're called midwives now, but these are mothers who understood and helped their sisters and daughters and their own mothers in certain instances give birth, and watched what happens with the infant all around the womb. So they weren't just midwives, they were womb medicine mothers. This is something that is really coming back into remembrance, because a lot of our own womb knowledge has been redictated back to us by a group of people who do not have a womb, and actually seem to not actually revere the womb in the way that we did as great mothers. Okay. And that the calendar, which is what I started getting into, especially around the 9-day calendar and the moon, is linked back to these great mothers. Month is named after the moon cycle of the mother. It literally is named for her menses. Okay. Then we have water women, women who spoke with animals or could connect to the ocean currents. Okay. Or elementals, right? This is something I've talked about. I definitely have a connection to water, specifically the ocean. And then each one of us has different connections to the elements, but most of us have a connection to water because we come in water. All right. Then we have the snake hair medicine keepers found in Maya and the Andean carvings. So where does the gorgons come from? Or where do the gorgons come from? Because gorgons are what is given the name to Medusa. And we predominantly see, and when we say snake hair, are we talking about locks? You know what I'm saying? Like, these are names given, right? So this is what people are seeing, is my point. Okay. And then we have women who spoke to stars and mapped dark constellations, which is, I'm getting a little emotional because that is something I'm doing in modern time, is really looking into the dark star maps, meaning where there is no light within where a lot of light. So the Milky Way is a great example because we can see the many lights of the Milky Way, but also where there are no lights. And this is where we get into like the serpent and certain animals that are within the Milky Way, because they're not lit up by the stars. They are actually lit up in the darkness in between and behind the stars. Then we have dream walkers and soul retrievers among the Inuit and Cree. Soul retrievers. Like, that is some powerful stuff. This is what we are, this is what we did, and this is what we're remembering. And we have the Pueblo and Hopi Corn Mother priestesses. And so we also have the three sisters, the squash, beans, and corn, the three sisters in food and agriculture, which also links back to the stars, specifically the Pleiadians, Sirius, and Orion, but also incorporates Ursa Major and Minor, which is also known as the Big Dipper here in North America, and the planets. I'm learning that the planets were also looked at, followed, and could help with agriculture, seasons, ceremonies, those type of things. And then we get into, thank you for being here. It's great to see you here and participating in these Sundays. I love it. Okay. Then we have the Pacific Northwest Salmon Cycle Women, which I need to actually look up and do a whole video around. Salmon cycle. So I do know a little bit about the salmon cycle. It's pretty, if you don't know, first of all, salmon are considered a prehistoric fish. And if you look at salmon, especially their face, it looks like something very prehistoric. And actually, I feel odd saying that because prehistoric just means before we started writing about it. So these creatures have been around for a long time. And the salmon has a run where once there's a specific spot where they are created, then they leave where they were created, they go out into the world. And then when it's time to lay eggs again, or quote unquote spawn, they return home, and they typically go to great lengths, can jump up waterfalls, can jump up rocks, can jump up great rushes of water to return home, and then eventually pass on because their cycle has ended. And it is within their genetics or within their being to know where they came from and to go back home to it. And they can go miles and miles away from it. So I know that part. So there must be a link to her knowing the cycle and maybe even her own cycle. But I will look into the Pacific Northwest cycle woman and present a little bit more information on our next Female Reverence Sunday. Okay, I'm just going to jot that down so I don't remember, so I don't forget. Okay. Shout out to the Pacific Northwest. Just saying. It's been a pleasure to live there. And also, it's not horrible to return to somewhere where it is pretty warm all the time. And I'm writing this with my left hand, which is good for your brain. Side note, every once in a while, it's a good way to reprogram certain things, writing with the hand that you're not used to writing with. Unless it's forced on you, that's no fair. But out of your own idea of doing it, it's great for us. It's great for us to do that kind of thing. It's a great way to help rewrite our programming. Okay, now the next one is the Yuki and Hupa obsidian blade woman who guarded burial sites. That's interesting because Anpu or Anput, who is another name for Anubis, is also linked to obsidian. So isn't that interesting? And the dog who guarded burial sites. So also, the more I learn about the Mesoamerican and American languages and kind of ceremonies and ways, I see a great link between what we've been taught comes out of Egypt. I personally think it comes from here, and more information is coming out to solidify that. All right, I'm also writing that one down. So I want to look that one up as well. All right. Then we go a little bit more into specific um, groups here in the Americas. Okay. All right. Most of those peoples and names, I mean, like the Pacific Northwest Salmon Cycle Woman, I hadn't heard of her. And as you know, I've been trying to find as much as I can. So it's great when I find new information. But these were erased and they became myth, but they were actually beings. We didn't just make this stuff up. It came from somewhere real. All right. So these great mothers held calendars, held waters, held birth and death rites and ceremonies. They held prophecy. They spoke with to the stars and shared those stories. Excuse me. And shared those stories. And when the colonizers came and when patriarchy really set in, these things were erased and became separate from what they were because they were councils. They were independent female spirit. They were female authority that was revered and looked at highly. Oh, it's the bandana. I was like, it looks like I have red in my hair. I do. It's a bandana. Okay. So I wanted to hear a little bit about what are called the Black Indians and the matriarchs of Turtle Island, because that's where we live. And so this is how it's described in some of my research, but what we're talking about are dark skinned, melanated, matriarchal line groups of Turtle Island, these Americas specifically, and fundamentally, or I should say, or foundationally, in the Southeast, the Gulf Coast, and Mississippi River Basin, and all the way over here towards the Pacific. Okay. And so we have the southeastern matriarchs, which are Muskogee, Creek, Seminole, Yamasee, Timucua, and Gullah Geechee. All right. And the Sachem queens are beloved women. They held land, they were war councils, and were in charge of the clan line. And the matriarchal property and identity was based through them. And this is why I get so frustrated when I hear about reclaiming ourselves, because part of reclaiming ourselves as Indigenous Americans is recognizing the authority and the leadership of the great melanated matriarchal mothers. Okay, they also guarded water. They are predominantly around the education around the mound sites, childbirth rights. The titles: elder sister, corn mother, beloved woman, war woman, white and or blue clan mothers. And one of the names to reclaim would be Nancy Ward or Nan Yehi. Nan Yehi. She is Cherokee and she was known as the beloved woman and war shaman. She led warriors, spoke to spirit in battle, and was called a prophetess, even by colonizers. She has the lineage of highly melanated and was among the groups I mentioned before, but she specifically was Cherokee. But we have long lineages among the Cherokee, Creek, and Yamasee that are documented but have been suppressed because they became like runaways or slaves. And then we have we have the highly melanated, but also called the Black Seminole women, who were warrior wives, water carriers, dream seers, and midwives. They held spirit work, food sovereignty, and child escape networks and ceremonial fires. They also were key figure in one of the key figures is Polly Foreman. She is an interpreter, a diplomat, and the protector of Seminole kin networks. And The matriarch function was women negotiated alliances with the Bahamas, Mexico, the Muskogee, and the Maroons, while military officers recorded that Seminole women decide war. And women chose flight over capture, leading their people into freedom. So when I mentioned the child escape networks, so many of the colonizers were when it became a time to like put people into specific categories, the children were often targeted. So what a lot of these great mothers would do is they would adopt their sisters or their cousins or their friends' children within the same tribe to keep the children within their culture and within their language and to protect them from the colonizers. Well, what the colonizers did is they started saying that these witchy women or these scary females were stealing children. And this is where they started creating missions to said protect these children when actually it was just perpetuating more harm. But these child escape networks went to great lengths. They would teach the children to run into the forest, which is also called a hammock, which I didn't know. This is where hammock gets its original name from. But they would tell them to run into the hammock and hide. They had either a whistle or a certain sound that they would make to let the children know what to do. They taught the children how to lay under the river and breathe through reeds. And I feel like there's something I'm forgetting that they taught the children. But that's what that meant. Because at first I was like, what do you mean, child escape networks? But it was a way to preserve the children and the culture, one and the same. Okay. And then we have the Natchez and Gulf Coast star women. So the Natchez princesses or sun daughters, they were matrilineal sun line, brown and highly melanated noble houses and priestly burial authority. So again, we have somebody representing the um, the graves and the ancestors. And then we have there's a bird out there that is a green, I hope, and wanting to bring attention. Maybe I need to do one around the bird goddesses next. Then we have so in relation to the Sun Mothers, European journals described very dark Indian queens, and history renamed them mulattas or concubines. Oh, thanks for that. Okay, son-daughter governance. We're reclaiming the son-daughter governance, the serpent daughter governance, the dragon daughter governance, the moon and star daughter governance and authority. That's what this is. That's what we're doing on this remembrance path. And then we have let's see, how long have I been on? Okay, not too long, but soon I got to wrap it up. The Maroon priestess lineages. So this is in Louisiana, Florida, the Great Dismal Swamp, and the Caribbean Gulf or the Caribbean Gulf. These are females who built swamp fortresses, night drum warning systems, salt water healing rites, and alligator spirit initiation. This is where you can see the link to like the scariness that are applied to these certain animals because great mothers were able to speak to them and connect with them and work with them in a medicinal way. That's basically what I just said. And then the salt marsh would be considered the womb return, an ancestral portal, the Snake River, a memory site, and the connection to water and the womb and the saltwater womb, right? And then we have the Pacific Black indigenous females, highly melanated is what I like to say. And this is kind of going back again to Yuki and Yana, the mountain women, the Ohlone Coast are called the Sea Women, the Chumash Plank, the Canoe Sisters, and the Gulf of California Fisher Mothers. These great mothers of Polynesian and Indigenous American phenotype. They say African, but I'm not including African on Turtle Island because we are American. We are of the Americas, okay? Was here long before the Europeans along the Pacific Ocean, and they were considered shell workers and kept track of like routes of navigation because of the stars. And colonial anthropology called them oddly, okay, I'm just going to tell you. So it helps bring solidification to that we were here, we didn't come from Africa. Colonial anthropology called them oddly, I don't even know if I could say that on YouTube, but Negroid groups, meaning dark looking from what is considered Africa groups. And these were star navigating mother clans. Okay. And then we're going to end this one. Oh, no. Yeah, we're almost done. Okay. So the hidden mound queens. So these are Mississippian, Cahokia, and Spirio mounds, where archaeology ties them. Anyways, they try to male center a lot of these historical things, but the mounds are mounds. Mounds are round, mounds are in a female shape. So I feel like that's a huge hint. There's serpent goddess cults, shell breastplates with female forms, and they have cosmic birthing imagery. The women buried with counsel and regalia with, certain authority, and elite houses traced through the mother's bones. Okay. This is what I was saying. Matrilineal means passed down through the mothers. So, these hidden mound queens are those females. Okay. So, and a figure that was lost in the colonial script is the copper serpent mother of Cahokia. Most likely a real ancestor, not just a symbol. And then we know the erasure pattern. I don't want to get into that because we're in the remembrance pattern. We already have seen what has happened through patriarchy, and specifically the religions that formed around patriarchy to undo and suppress the Great Mother. Okay, so that is, that's right. So that is our Great Mother female reverence for today. I'm just wanting to make sure if there's anything I left out. I feel like that's pretty much everything. But, okay. And just a little bit of reference back to the protecting of the children when I was talking about the child escape networks. So the melanated Seminole, Muskogee Creek, Yamase, and Gullah Geechee females would organize nighttime river crossings, food caches in swamps, safe kin villages inland so that the children could go there, runners and signal drummers, so ways to alert people that they were coming. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And then medicine to calm babies, teas and plant smoke and song. So where we consider saging and such a spiritual practice, some of the that type of plant smoke was on purpose to help bring calming to babies and to other great mothers, um, and other community members. So some of these children were hidden, transferred, fostered, or escorted into maroon towns when slave catchers raided or were patrols were coming. And we actually are seeing a resurgence of this type of warning in today's world because the colonizer is still doing its colonizing. Okay. And then we have Spanish and English militias that were kidnapping children, but the great mothers were doing their best to keep this from happening. But this was a way to also break the clan. So not just separating the great mothers, but also removing the children from their communities and their remembrance. But the maroon women were the backbone of these fights. They literally, this is where I got that reference to the hammock, where it says Spanish Floridian archive reference the melanated Indian woman leading small ones into the hammocks, meaning the forest island. Okay. So, and then we also have the mission era of Florida, Georgia, California, and the Southwest, where the mission systems were being created to re-educate indigenous children. And so the great mothers would hide the children in canoes. They would disguise them as kin and other clans. They would move them into maternal relatives elsewhere. They would give them ghost names or fake names to protect their identity, and they would teach them to run into marsh when the bells rang. And this was considered counter kidnapping. Okay. And then the Maroon and Swamp nations, this is where they actually created hidden child villages where they would teach the young walking into water without a splash, so to be very quiet, how to breathe underwater with the reeds, night vision training and reading the stars, swamp medicine and food, and silent signals to warn them. And these were actual strategic tactics to help keep the children protected. And then adoption became a form of survival. So adoption then was a way to keep the culture and keep the children within their home clan. Whereas now adoption, and I just want to say that it was either yesterday or the 31st. One of those 2 days, within the last 3 days, I'll just say that was National Adoptee Day. And so, what you see today are adopted children actually being completely removed and replaced with a new clan or tribe or language, not actually the protection and continuance of their culture and language. And so, I find this a little emotional because I think it is so cool how the great mothers understood the importance of keeping the children within the community and within their culture. Okay, so that is, yeah, that is today's Great Mother Remembrance. And so the next one, I'm going to do a little research around the Pacific Northwest salmon cycle women and a little more into Yuki and Hupa, the Great Mothers, and the stories around them to bring to you. If you have any ideas or anybody you'd like to hear about, please let me know. I will dig into it. Okay, so as usual, it's not a book. It's several things. So what I typically do is I go into, so in case this, the live doesn't go through, I'm just going to read the question. So Alchemical Empress 717 asked, what book is this or research info from, please? So I went online and asked good old Chat GPT a lot of information. And then what I do is I go back. And so, as you know, most of my research around like Mama Kila and Mama Quoto come from online, and some of the women's myths and secrets, some of finding articles that are written by people from South America, from these places that talk about it. And some of the information is gotten from other people who talk about some of the great mothers. And then I just go on. Most of it's online. That's the short end of it. It's not directly from a book. Okay. So there's that. Any other questions? You're welcome. Okay, so as per my usual, I'm going to pull a card from the Sacred Mothers and Goddesses deck. And again, I'm going to pull, so I'm not going to pull one of those cards, but I am going to talk a little bit about some of the messages from the Great Mother, link them to what is happening today. So we'll talk about that first before we go into the cards. So last year, so usually around this time of year between November and December, I try to do like a deep dive with Great Mother and get what information I can around not just the numbers of the next year, our calendar, because there's many calendars, but there's many forms of gematria and number relation energy to certain things, not just in the Americas, okay, not just in the Gregorian calendar. So next year, a lot of people are going to say it's a 10-year, but technically it's a 1 year because 9 is the completion, and then it goes back to 1. So next year is going to be a 1 year. So some of the things Great Mother said last year was that we would see, because it's a 9 year, and that's Great Mother's number, that we would see a surge in what Great Mother, and specifically the melanated mother's authority and how she's seen, would shift. Now, I think I and many others thought that would mean that we would have had a different president to kind of represent that. But what we are seeing are plenty of, not only online, but in personal circles and in religious circles and in kind of like a worldwide recognition of the importance and the value of the mother, of a mother, and of the Great Mother. And the Great Mothers remembered, like a lot, and Alzua, right? The, say, Persian Great Mothers. And then kind of like what I was talking about, like Buddha's mother, right? Maya. And that remembrance. But not only that, but we would see males starting to defend females and provide platforms. And we are seeing that. We have seen a surge of that this year specifically. So outside of it being a 1 year, which means kind of when one thing ends, another thing begins, no matter how we look at it. The two often go together. So what is coming? I'm going to do a deeper dive and get some messages about what is coming for the 1 year and what that looks like for us as great mothers. Okay. All right. So to the cards. The bottom one is Eshel, but I'm not going to pull, but it fits because I was talking about her a little bit, but we're not pulling it. Unless she comes up again. Shuffling. This deck has brought me such education, and it's caused me to look up more and more stuff. And when it comes to ChatGPT, I know some people have, I think it's a great tool. And oftentimes, if it's something that I can't find either in a book or with a little bit more sustenance, so to speak, you can ask ChatGPT, hey, can you give me specific links to the information? Can you give me references to this? Because sometimes some of the information is created, but oftentimes it does have sources and references, but utilizing that tool is the next part. It's not just, so that's why I like that you asked that question, because it challenges me to be like, hey, is this stuff real that you're talking about? Is it true? But also recognizing that sometimes our great mother information isn't going to be backed by certain information because it is a remembrance. But I love when we can give that kind of backed information or backed reference, because it just helps. It helps in this day and age. Okay, so the card that came up is Embrace the Sacred Feminine. I feel like we're doing that. We're doing that. All right. So we see the moon and a cup with gold in it. Oh, this is actually the picture on the button. Okay. So that also brings me to darkness. Uh-oh. I better hurry this up. Okay. Um, the idea of darkness being good, not bad, not something bad, right? Because we see like this would be more the light and this would be the darkness. And look how much brighter the moon is, how much brighter the cup is, how much more bright the sun is. So we recognize that part of the sacred feminine is embracing what is called darkness and recognizing that it is not bad. It is darkness. It is quiet. It is coolness. It is the womb. It is the soil. Okay. And so the powerful energy of the divine feminine, the sacred mother, and the goddess is calling to connect with you. Love yourself deeply and radically. Live compassionately and fully. Connect to your intuition and your spirit, grounding deep into the earth. Allow yourself to be fully present, alive, tuned in, and living in love. And that means recognizing your needs, your wants, and what makes you the individual that you are. Because it doesn't mean you have to be like creating all the time or spiritual all the time. It just means what helps you feel good about yourself on a daily and protects your sacred energy. That's my idea of what love is. Share your ideas of what love is if you'd like. Deepen your practice by harnessing her power and the elements. I'm throwing that in there. That's not in the book, but the elements, and walking in her path, your path. It is time to move through the veil into other realms. Embrace the sacred feminine. All right. That's today's Great Mothers and Female Reverence Sundays. I love doing this. I feel like this is really fun. I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys are learning a lot. I will post my super chats, and super thanks are always welcome. I appreciate that. Members, I appreciate you and thank you for being here and watching when you do. Also, check out my Patreon if you get a chance. There's some other videos there that have more to do with healing and emotional work. And I will post my PayPal and Venmo if you want to support me in that way. Also, leave a comment of somebody you might be interested in learning about. All right, little sound before we go. All right, until next week or the next video. Great Mother be with you.